Hey guys, David the Fishing Pastor here, and I'm out at a local pond doing some fishing, and I'm throwing a crankbait right now, which I love to do. And I thought I'd give you some tips on casting lures like crankbaits, lighter lures, into the wind. Now I know this is kind of contrary to my usual in front of the camera tutorial video, but I'm out here doing this and I thought I might as well just give you some tips here. And like I said, you know, out here throwing a crankbait around. It's a windy day, and when you throw a crankbait with the wind, you usually get really good long casts, and you're like, man, I can cast far. Well, a lot of times it's the wind picking up your lure and helping that cast go even further. And when you're throwing crankbaits, you're covering water. You want to make long casts. Now when you turn around, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but the trees are blowing that way because the wind is actually coming from the south. When you throw into the wind, you'll find something completely different. A lot of times you'll actually end up with backlashes and bird's nests. And the reason for that is that your reel is already set for a certain amount of resistance and tension. And so, like I said, I want to give you 3 tips to help you cast into the wind and help you avoid those backlashes and bird's nests. So the first tip that I want to give you is really simple and usually does the trick. After this, a lot of times you generally don't have to do anything else. But that's just to adjust your settings. You're getting those backlashes and bird's nests. Again, you're trying to cover water. Generally with crankbaits, I know at least I do, I turn down the brakes a lot so I can get optimal distance, maximum distance with that reel. Well, a really easy thing to do is just turn those brakes up. And even you can even work with your tension spool knob and see if that helps. But generally working with your brakes will help with that. Your brakes will slow down that cast. You may not get as much distance, but at least you're not ending up with backlashes and bird's nests. And what you really want is to get into a certain area. You're trying to cover you know, different water, and you may not get the same distance as when you're casting into the wind, but you're still able to make that cast and get into that spot that you weren't able to before. So like I said, just adjusting your settings, working with your brakes, maybe your tension spool knob if you have to, but generally doing the brakes should do it. So the second tip I have for you is, let's say you've hiked up your brakes, you're at a 9, 10, or whatever the maximum is on your reel, and you're still getting bird's nests and backlashes because you're fishing in hurricane, gale force winds. There's something else that you can do that I've talked about before, and you should probably be doing anyways, and that is just to feather your casts. And really all that means is using your thumb to control that cast, to control your spool. And I like doing this, and I think it's really important we do this as anglers, and it's just going to really kick up your game because now you control every aspect of that cast. What I really like about it is if I'm going to throw my lure somewhere and I just have a terrible cast and I know I'm headed for some reeds or I'm headed into a tree or whatever, I can bring my thumb down and stop that cast in place. If it's going somewhere and I don't want it to go as far, again, I can stop it. But when you're feathering, you're controlling how fast line is coming off of that spool. You know, the less tension, obviously, the more line is going to come out. The more tension you put with your thumb, the less line. So that's just something that you can do as well. If, you know, adjusting your settings isn't working for you, just use pretty much a manual control. There's fish busting everywhere here. I think they're carp though. But just manually basically control that cast. With the settings, you're going into automatic mode. You're not doing it. The reel's doing it itself. When you're feathering, you're going into manual control, and now you control every aspect of that cast. I like to use both. I adjust my settings, and then I still always have my thumb on or near that spool so that, again, I can control what's going on with that cast. Okay, so the third and final tip that I have for you for casting into the wind is really the type of cast that you make. Now when you're throwing with the wind, you know, you're throwing these really high, long Hail Mary type bomb casts, because you're trying to cover lots of water. You know, you're trying to get maximum distance, and the wind is just picking up that lure and taking it. Now, if you do the same exact thing into the wind, what's going to happen is the wind's going to pick it up, blow it back the other way, and then that's how you get your backlashes and your bird's nest. So the type of cast that you want to make when you're throwing into the wind is when it's going to help that lure kind of just cut through the wind, and that's going to be a low, fast cast. And you can even use like a sidearm type approach, you know, or however you want to cast, but make sure that it's a low, fast cast that's going to really cut straight into the wind. And again, you may not get maximum distance, you may not even get a whole lot of distance, but you're still trying to cover that area of water, because there may be a fish there. You know, you've fished this side over here, you've fished this whole side, you've made fan casts, you've done all that and nothing. Now you want to cast to the other side because, well, you haven't made casts here, and there may be a fish there. So again, just these low, fast casts, and with those you really do want to feather, because they may hit the water a lot sooner than you have anticipated. But just make sure that again, your thumb is on that spool, and just combining these three things, your settings have been adjusted, your thumb is on the spool, and then you're making these low fast casts that are cutting through the wind. Okay guys, there you go. Just kind of a quick little tutorial video, like I said, on how to cast lighter lures into the wind. Hopefully this helps you. Try it out next time you go out and it's a nice windy day. Windy days can be really good, especially when you're throwing moving baits like crankbaits, spinner baits, things like that. The fish tend to get a little bit active, and so try it out. You know, sometimes it's hard to go out if you're on a kayak or a boat, or even from the bank or whatever. You know, really windy days can be challenging, and a lot of times we try to find what's covered by the wind, but you'll find a lot of times that fishing in the windy areas will produce some bites, because like I said, the fish get really active. So thanks again for watching. Really appreciate every one of you guys. God bless, and remember to pray, fish, repeat, and I'll see you guys in my next video.